if TikTok wasn't bad enough, now the Albanians are using it to invade the UK. And I wish I was being hyperbolic, but I'm not. But before we do that, let's talk about, over on lotusceases.com, why this kind of immigration is why you can't get a house. Callum was gracious enough to walk me through all the stats, and I just sat there making jokes, of course, but this was actually my first podcast for the company. I was very gracious for you to invite me in. But my generation is currently trapped in pods, and the reason is we build about 400,000 houses a year, but we import net about 400,000 people a year, and it's only increasing because the Tories brought in 1 million people on work visas, etc., which always overstayed last year, plus illegal migration, and not a single Conservative leadership candidate, either in the 5-person run or in the 2-person run currently going on, has spoken about lowering legal migration at all. Or
I think there was one sentence from Kemi Badenoch.
I don't know if she said legal, because everyone did say illegal, but you'll have to check.
I'll have to check that. I'm sure I'm sure she said something about we'll have to look at immigration numbers, something like that.
Right.
So very, very tepid.
Very vague, tepid. Yes, still within the paradigm. However, they've only so far mentioned the small boats.
Yeah.
So, speaking of the small boats, let's look at where we are, shall we? There was a new daily record set on the 2nd.
Bravo, record setting. We're number 1.
The first, rather, last Monday, and that was 696 people in a single day. So nearly 700 people besieging our shores. Wonderful. If we go on to the next one, this is just the illegal channel crossings for last year. So there were 4,540 people detected arriving by small boats in January to March of this year. This is more than 3 times higher than they were for the same 3 months in 2021. Those were only 1,363. There were 2,526 people detected arriving in last year. This compares with 8,466 in 2020. 1,843 in 2021 and 299 in 2018. So we're getting 3 times as many last Monday than in the whole of 2018. So this exponential increase of tripling of 2020 to 2021 and now 20,000 up from this time last year, this projected to increase 50% this year already. So at the rate of increase, the numbers will eclipse the 61,000 British troops that stormed Normandy by 2024.
They're getting the boats.
Interesting question. I don't quite have the answer to that, but of course, when they're seized by the RNLI, apparently they go into a warehouse, and I've heard reports that cannot be confirmed that they're being auctioned off. But to who?
Oh,
we don't know. So it could just be a circular system.
Yeah,
it could be a feedback loop for mass migration. Yeah. So what's exacerbating this? Well, TikTok apparently, if you look at the Mail's reporting, the TikTok summer sale for migrants. If you can scroll through the images, please, John, just as I discuss, because they don't have the videos playing, but they do have some screenshots, which are just hilarious. People traffickers have launched a £1,500 a person summer sale to cross the channel illegally in a dinghy, mainly aimed at Albanians, exploiting a loophole in the UK's anti-slavery laws, which allows people to stay here if they arrive on our shores and they're saying they've been trafficked for slave labour. So we keep them here as an underclass under the anti-slavery laws.
That is mad.
It was advertised on TikTok with the promise, the French won't stop you. They will escort you safely until you reach the UK. So why is Priti Patel paying them multi-millions to not?
Yeah.
At least a third of the 3,000 migrants who crossed from France in the past 6 weeks used one of the offers. Leaked figures have revealed migrants from the Balkan country, Albania, now make up 4 in 10, that's 37.5% exactly, of arrivals, with 1,075 Albanians arriving in the UK aboard dinghies and small boats in the 6 weeks up to July 12th. The price of crossing the channel appears to have dropped from close to 20,000 to between 5,000 and 3,000 per person. In some cases, it has now been as low as 1,500 to fill inflatable boats landing on the Kent coast. One advert said, "Don't pay 17,000 to 18,000. They are passing by every day. It has never been cheaper." Another shows a group in a dinghy while holding the Albanian flag and promising safe passage into the UK for £5,000. The last one I've got here says, "Hurry, Albanians, England is waiting."
I hate it.
Reminder, Albania is a NATO country.
Yeah.
So they're protected by us, and then they're just offloading their entire population to us for cheap slave labour.
I hate it.
Now, it would be terrible to claim, of course, that Albania is a safe country, as do noted right-wing outlet The Guardian. UK tourists head to Albania for sense of exotic without long-haul flight.
Albania is exotic, is it?
So it's a short trip. Actually, if you go through some of the photos here, some of it looks quite nice. I mean, I'm not going to say it's the safest place in the world, but the architecture is quite pretty. Apparently, it's got quite a nice climate.
No, that is nice.
So it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. It's hardly a war-torn hellscape.
Why the hell do you want to come and live in our slums? Our brutalist slums. Why do you want to come here?
Yeah, well, it's, I mean, that's not exactly the nicest looking thing in the world, but cliffs are lovely. Some of the beaches look all right. I might visit myself next year. I might actually hop in a dinghy and do a round trip. It's probably cheaper. I remember actually speaking to my friend once, who's a Texan, and his wife's American as well, and they've got to pay to renew their visa every year. And I once told him, just get a flight to France, hop in a rubber duck, come over, and they'll pay to put you up.
Yep.
far less expensive. So GB News have been doubling down on this, and God bless them. They didn't do the best for the FBI coverage, but they're doing fantastic on this, and it's because Farage is covering it, as per usual. So TikTok has been used by human trafficking gangs to advertise English channel crossings. One caption from a clip posted last month, translated from the Albanian, says, "Today we passed 3 rafts of 60 people from Dunkerque. Tomorrow the other way, 5,000 the way, we are the strongest group in France." One similar post said, "We have a route every day until the end of July. We're the best group in France to pass people. Price is 5,000. DM for the next route." Another said, "Only for 4,000. What are you waiting for?" It's actually like a travel brochure.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's like TUI. Leave tomorrow, contact in DM. One of the videos claimed to get you from Brussels to the UK for £4,550 just one day, and a recent post offered a summer sale to customers for a cut price of £3,500. TikTok has only banned 4 of the counts flagged to them by GB News.
So, I mean, if there's 30 people on here paying $5,000 a pop, that's 150 grand.
Nice work if you can get it.
On one 2-hour trip.
Yeah, and bear in mind this is costing us £5 million a day.
Yeah.
So they're making absolute ridiculous loads. They probably don't even have the space to store the cash, and meanwhile we are hemorrhaging funds.
And there's 5 or 6 of these dinghies coming a day. I'm not surprised.
Yeah. So if we can just play Marja Farage covering this, some of the TikTok ads are just hilarious.
A GB News viewer who's done a deep dive into TikTok and found this material. This video from July was on TikTok, and here it is. They're coming across from Albania. They're going to Brussels by aeroplane. There they are. They've arrived in Brussels. They're now on the coast, as you can see. They're at Dunkirk, and this is where they've got to get to. They have got to get to London, and the advert says it can all be done in 24 hours. A video here of the boat to tell the punters who are going to get rid of 4,500, 5,000 what it is. And there we are, 27th of July. Come on the 27th of July. It's £4,500 per person. There's the phone number. We've obviously redacted the last part of the phone number, but there is the phone number to ring. And this is your journey. Look, beautiful flat seas. There's the boat just taking off from the beach of Dunkirk. Not a gendarme in sight. Quite why Priti Patel wants to send tens of millions of more pounds to them is quite utterly beyond me. And they're off on their cross-channel journey. But of course, it turns out that it's not 21 miles or so across the English Channel. No, all they've got to do is get to the UK 12-mile line. That's the important thing. Once you get to the UK 12-mile line, something is going to happen. And we'll see this in a little bit as this film progresses. Yes, here we are, a sunny day. They're at sea. There we are. They're at sea. Everybody's happy, nice and calm. And there's the taxi. The taxi's arrived, yes, otherwise known as Border Force. It could, of course, on some days have been the RNLI, but they crossed the 12-mile line. They've probably, in many cases, been escorted there all the way by the French Navy, and they're picked up. And here we are, they've arrived. It's London. It's Saturday night in London. We're staying in a lovely 4-star hotel. Let's all go out and celebrate. That was last week. This week, today, this was posted on TikTok. Have a look at this. There we are. Summer sale! You can now come for a knockdown price of £3,500. Well, there it is, folks.
So, yeah, by the morning, you fly into France. By the evening, you're an Uber driver.
Yeah.
It's insane. And then also, they're all marketing it with the emojis, with the graphics, with the very well-edited cuts between every stage in the journey. It's like backpackers going to Bali for their gap year.
Yeah, except they're breaking into our country.
Yeah, they're besieging the UK. So we're not going to play this one, but I'm just going to summarize briefly. He's also said about the fact that this is Albanian gangs as well as this is Kurdish gangs as well as the Albanians, and they're apparently setting up cash-in-hand barbershops and car washes everywhere.
Yeah,
this is one of the few actual cash businesses still done. I ended up using a cash-in-hand barbershop. I'm not going to say whether or not that was the case because I don't know who runs it, but it was very odd having to go, oh, okay, I'll put my coat down and nip down to the outlet and take it out. And apparently the reason it's all cash in hand is so they can avoid taxes and they don't have to have any documents for the people that are working there. But lots of them are pretending to be Turkish, apparently, because that's somehow, they think that's going to be higher trust to the British, which is a strange thing to do.
Yeah, we love the Turks.
Yeah. I'm going there at the end of the month, and there you go. Their economy's going swimmingly as well. So Albania has apparently fallen prey to right-wing British media and politicians. Apparently this is all just a smear campaign, despite them filming themselves breaking into the country.
Okay, yeah, sure.
This is an Albanian national news outlet.
Oh, well, that explains it. Then.
Yeah. So reports in the media noted that 3 times as many Albanian migrants are trying to enter the country compared to other countries of origin.
Sorry, just to go back to the person who wrote this. Alice Taylor at the top.
That's interesting.
Written by an Alice, so not an Albanian name then.
No.
So it's some English person who's writing a lie.
Yeah, right. Likely they've outsourced their our national sabotage. The information was immediately weaponized by politicians seeking to debunk the rhetoric that immigrants are those fleeing war-torn countries. Yeah, notoriously war-torn country, Albania.
Or France. Sorry.
Or any of the countries you came through, you could have stopped off on an overnight stop or walked.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I know Belgium's a bit rubbish, but the report reveals that 1,075 Albanians made up 37.5 of the 2,863 people who crossed in the 6 weeks between the 1st of June and the 12th of July. They were followed by Iranians, also not at war, terrible country, Afghanis,
not at war.
Not at war. Settled, terrible country, but most of them prefer the Taliban to our occupation anyway. Iraqis, that was our fault, but it's still a hellhole. And Syrians, again, not our fault. Fueling the fire was top channel journalist Mohammed Velu, noted British white supremacist Mohammed, who gave an interview to notorious right-wing and anti-immigrant ex-politician and Brexiteer Nigel Farage. And then they go on to list his accolades, of course, all of his endorsements. The former UKIP leader is known for his anti-EU views, links to the Pizzagate conspiracy, a condemner of George Soros, and has been accused of anti-Semitism, being anti-LGBT, and pro-conversion therapy, nonsense, sexist comments, Islamophobia, praising Putin, no, banning HIV-positive people from entering the UK, silver linings, as well as being involved in several expenses scandals.
Jesus.
But then they go on to admit, it is kind of happening. But people we don't like are saying it. So this is the infamous interview in question that they complain about with the journalist named Mohammed. Nigel Farage, they asked him, why do so many Albanians want to enter the UK illegally? And he just says, my quick response is going to be one word: poverty. Most of the people who are going from Albania to the UK on the boat are from northern Albania, a place without the possibility of employment. So economic migrants.
Yeah.
Straight from the mouth from Albania.
Yep.
Fantastic. No, we're all racist. Apparently Priti Patel, also noted white supremacist, saying 70% of economic migrants is bunk. Oh. No, turns out all the Albanians aren't fleeing a war. They aren't fleeing their holiday destination of a country. They're just broke and want Gibbs' job. Lovely.
Not only that, it's not even the job. They want state benefits as well.
Yeah, which immigrants claim at a disproportionately higher rate. And you're wondering why the NHS, despite exponentially increasing funding, is going down the pan. He also mentioned the fact that the Kurdish gangs are involved in trafficking gangs. And I dug up a thing from the National Crime Agency here from fairly recently. I think this was last year. 6 men, 5 from the northeast of England and another from London, represent, have been charged as part of a major National Crime Agency investigation into an organised criminal network alleged to have smuggled hundreds of Iraqi Kurdish immigrants into the UK. The migrants will be charged between 5,000 and 10,000 for using lorries to transport people from France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. So this has been
big business,
an issue that's been going on for ages.
Yep.
And besides Priti Patel showing up and doing photo shoots at the people trafficking bus, policy-wise, from Whitehall and Parliament, sod all's happened.
Well, they're complaining the lefty human rights lawyers are stopping us. Okay, but you have a massive majority in Parliament. Just get rid of it.
Yeah.
What are they using to stop you? Get rid of that.
I'm going to cover in a moment the actual legality of that. And no, don't apologise, but the Conservatives' proposed solution is equally as stupid.
Oh, of course it is.
So I've done some digging.
Of course it is.
So the effect of this... That's right. We're Conservatives.
What was I thinking? Sorry, God.
That's all right. So the effect of this is that now the UK has moved into the top 10 most common countries of birth for mothers and fathers born outside the UK.
Oh yeah, what a shock.
Obviously as well, this isn't included in here, but I saw this just before going on air. GB News published on the 5th of July earlier this year that now Mohammed is the most popular name in 2022 in the UK.
Yeah, the most popular boy's name.
Yeah, fantastic. The reverse is actually happening with Indigenous Brits, and this isn't a great replacement conspiracy theory, it's just looking at the numbers. Yeah. It's not saying there's a coordinated campaign, but we do have a problem with demographics in this country. Under 625,000 babies born in England and Wales in 2021 were from Indigenous Brits. That's up 2% from 2020. We're really doing well. The fertility rate was 1.61 children per woman in 2021, slightly higher than the 1.58 in 2020. The slight increase in births was driven by a bump in women in their early 30s having children, who had a rate of 1.07, up 1.03 the year before.
Anything to do with the lockdown? People can't go anywhere.
Do you remember the baby boom from lockdown?
They claimed that it was going to happen. Yeah,
it's a massive baby bust. Instead, it turns out there's a great piece in CapX that I didn't include, but you'll be able to dig it up if you go look for it, where they interviewed a bunch of people, including like Italian couples, etc. And they said, the economics mean we have to put it off. Right. So it's a self-perpetuating issue. Even if you're locked in your apartment with your significant other, with nothing to do, as Dostoevsky would say, but sleep, eat cakes, and busy yourself with the continuation of the species, not a lot of bumping and grinding was going on. It turns out, and even if it was to do with contraception because nobody could afford to have them. And so we've ended up in this hellscape, as The Guardian gleefully reports. Record numbers of women reach 30 child-free in England and Wales. More than half.
Well done,
50%.
ladies.
Yeah. The first time ever, more than half of the women above 30 don't have children. This is a genuine crisis, not just because we'd like the continuation of our civilization. We should be grateful for having inherited it, but the meaningfulness of having a family. It's a lonely 40 after 40 without kids. And so I fear that a lot of women, particularly my generation, are going to be bitter and miserable when down the line they realise they were lied to and their biological clock runs out.
Well, one of the things I find interesting is when women get into their 40s, the word I constantly hear used by 40 plus women is I become invisible. That's an interesting word because up until that point, they've always enjoyed a lot of attention from men, but when they get into their 40s, they're like, men just stop paying attention. It's like, yeah, because you're not youthful anymore. Yeah. That's what men are attracted to, unfortunately.
I remember the Sex and the City writer. She got to about 60 and she said, my greatest regret was pursuing a career over a family. And she is a woman who had told generations of women, oh, go into a metropolitan area, be a career woman, sleep around. And it turns out that she's had a miserable life.
Yeah. And so to avoid this invisibility, you would have children and grandchildren, people who want and need things from you. But if you don't have that, well, it's going to be lonely.
So obviously this is not a coordinated conspiracy theory necessarily, unless you count Tony Blair's attempt to rub the right's nose in diversity. But as we can see from this Telegraph piece, which words it quite well, a conspiracy of silence about the impact of mass migration has cost Britain dear. And that conspiracy of silence is happening among Conservative politicians because all they do is talk about the small boats. Of course, that's a major issue as we've seen here. But also mass legal migration is also a problem.
Yeah, the small boats are a drop in the ocean. Like if there are 50,000 migrants come across the channel this year, which I think what they were expecting was something about that. Well, we had 1 million come in last year, 1.16 million come in legally. Yeah. It's nothing.
No. And this is not because of skin colour to cut it off at the past. Hope not hate.
Bloody white, you know.
It's Albania, noted brown country, Albania. It's because if too many people come in at once without an appreciation of the culture and without even speaking the same language, they are distanced from the thing that that built the civilization they want to inherit in the first place. And so they live in essentially the empty ribcage of a beautiful country. And if too many people come in without the ability to assimilate, it just means we lose our national identity, which plenty of well-intentioned immigrants would like to come to and participate in the first place. So,
but the thing is, a lot of these people are the economic migrants that are not people who are, say, lovers of Britain.
Yeah.
You know, and so they have just come and they don't care. Yeah. And it's like, okay, but we don't need to bring those people. We can just bring in the people who actually like us.
Yeah.
And that'll be fine.
And it's frustrating because they have a parasitic relationship to the British state, but the only reason we're so prosperous is because of the culture in the first place.
Yes.
It's because of the English Protestant work ethic, as we were talking about off air, that makes us diligent rather than a lot of the Mediterranean countries, for example. They pass through and don't stay in, where they'll siesta all day, and it turns out they're bankrupt.
Fewer Gibbs.
Yes, exactly. So Migration Watch has said that Britain could expect more than 2 million immigrants every 10 years for the foreseeable future unless curbs were introduced. Despite declining birth rates, the population increase over the past 20 years is the fastest in history. And it's not a great replacement theory. It's just that British people aren't having kids. We're subsidising it with mass immigration. It's creating a massive underclass, and it's exacerbating things like housing and healthcare. And it's not sustainable. It's not good. So
this is in no way theoretical. That's the point. These are the numbers. This is what's actually happening.
It's just raw data,
and we can see that in the high streets. Yeah, like honestly, there's people from just all over the world, just all skin colours, all languages, and it's like a Middle Eastern bazaar or something.
Yeah, it's changed the national character. And again, we don't care about skin colour. We care about, can the institutions these people have inherited be maintained? And they have no ties to it. No. And this is why you and Bo have spoken about before, mass remigration being inevitable. If a war were to break out or economics decline were to get really severe, they'd hop back on the boats and go back and take all the wealth with them. So, are there any solutions to try and stop this? Well, one of the first things we have to do is repeal the Human Rights Act of 1998.
Oh, you're against human rights?
Well, it is Tony Blair's.
Yes.
So, because this is actually what the ECHR, this is based on the ECHR. So this is embedded into our law. And Article 5 of the ECHR is where a lot of the migration stuff hinges on, because it's the right to liberty and security. Now, those two words seem antithetical in the first place, because what's the old adage from
if you
the
trade
American...
liberty for security, you'll get neither.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was Benjamin Franklin quote. So if you're trying to have the government guarantee you freedom and that at the same time, then, well, we need to repeal the Domestic Human Rights Act of 1998 because it's founded on faulty premises before we commit to what incumbent Prime Minister, I think it's fair to call her, Liz Truss, has said in repealing the influence of the ECHR and replacing it with the British Bill of Rights. If the British Bill of Rights is based on human rights legislation that Tony Blair brought in, we're up S Creek, let's put it that way. But their suggested replacement is equally as incompetent. It's the 1951 UN Refugee Convention,
Right.
and its 1967 amendment. And I believe it might have been Rishi Sunak specifically, but I think Liz Truss's camp is also on board with this, who said about this at one of the hustings as the direct replacement, as a definition of refugee. So I'll get onto the definition of refugee in a minute, but Article 14 of the UN's Universal Declaration of Human Rights, enshrined into law in its member states, that includes us, says that it's the entitlement of any person to seek asylum in co-signatory countries. Everyone has the right to seek and enjoy in other countries asylum from persecution. This right may not be invoked in the case of prosecutions genuinely arising from non-political crimes or from acts contrary to the purposes and principles of the United Nations. And this is what everyone whines about when they say, oh, but you can't do your asylum application abroad, you have to do it as soon as you land here. So there's no actual real routes for immigration unless you use the small boats. The point of us being an archipelago is there are many safe nations on the way that you would have had to stop in, and so you should have petitioned it there. So even if we, as a UN nation, subscribe to this belief, our geography inhibits us from being the last port of call anyway.
Yeah.
But what is a refugee according to the UN? We're going to do a Matt Walsh documentary on this.
Oh, okay.
I'd love to do it.
Okay.
The 1951 definition of a refugee in this piece of legislation is someone who is unable or unwilling to return to their country of origin owing to a well-founded fear of being persecuted for reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group, or political opinion. That's so broad,
Yeah, that could
it is
be
absurd.
anyone.
Yeah. That is, what is a woman? A woman is anyone who identifies as a woman.
Well, I'm a refugee now, yeah.
Because I identify as a refugee. I'm a refugee from the British state, so if I tweet something mean,
Yeah.
I'm going to be banged up, am I?
Well, I mean, we probably will have to move to Hungary at some point, so we're going to have to rely on this.
I mean, the architecture in Budapest is particularly better than London. I do want to go over at some point. Also, one of the first places to drop his vaccine requirements.
Yeah.
So this is also the same UN, if you think they're going to be able to define human rights or refugees particularly accurately, who have appointed China and Saudi Arabia on its human rights committees. But there's also the great example.
What does human rights even mean when China and Saudi Arabia get to dictate?
Yeah, exactly. I'm unable or unwilling to afford human rights to my constituents.
Yeah.
I identify as a free and transparent democracy. But this is also the same UN which changed its definition of free speech in Article 19, after the 14, because the Soviet Union dissented.
Oh, yeah, I recall, yeah.
They said we want actually the right, not for free expression, but we want free expression with the proviso clause of banging up in a gulag anyone who's a Nazi or a fascist, of course. And so the UN will just bend over backwards for any tyrant and punish actual, transparent, prosperous nations. Yeah. And that's why people are fleeing those and coming here. So, despite the conservative institutional apathy to actually fixing this problem, we do have one small win. Thought I'd end on a minor white pill.
Well, that's good. I like small wins because that's better than 0 wins.
Yeah, well, it's a win of they're not oppressing us yet, but we'll take what we can get. Linton-on-Ouse, a tiny village in North Yorkshire, which Mark Stein on GB News as well has done God's work on reporting on consistently. They had a population of 600, and they plan to house 1,500, mostly male, or let's say entirely male, shall we, asylum seekers, air quotes, who didn't speak the language, in an RAF military base right next to it. And there was a lot of security concerns about the girls there, for example.
Yeah, no kidding.
They only had one little village shop, so all the migrants are going to raid the local co-op and there's going to be no supplies left, though I don't think they stock haram food. A government spokesperson said the government is steadfastly committing to tackling illegal migration, stopping dangerous small boat crossings, and reducing the number of asylum seekers in hotels, which cost the taxpayer more than $5 million a day. Then do something.
Yeah.
Please do something. And this is why we come on to a call to action from Migration Watch UK, an open letter to the Conservative candidates. If we can just scroll down just slightly. Migration Watch UK has published a remarkable poll on what the public really feel about massive, uncontrolled, unchecked, illegal immigration that continues. The poll found that 60% of the public wish to see a number of immigrants coming to the UK reduced. 34% by a lot. Count me in that.
Well, count me in the smaller percentage, which means ended entirely.
On immigration policy, those who intend to vote Conservative had very clear views. About 40% wanted a substantial reduction in net migration. 19% wanted tens of thousands, while 18% wanted a commitment to stop all migration to the UK. A total of 77% of the public.
I'm in the 18%. I didn't know. Okay.
Would you please tell the public, and in particular those who are now considering which candidate to vote for, that you will commit to a substantial reduction in net migration? So, anyone who's planning to go into the rest of the Conservative hustings, I would love if, even if you don't pre-screen the question right before, and I don't like the grip as much, but they did do this tactic for great effects to the neocons in America, go up to the microphone and just ask, hey, we're really concerned about the NHS, about housing. What will you do, not just to increase supply, but decrease demand by capping both illegal and legal migration for the UK. It is the only way out of this mess where people traffickers exploit social media to move people in as a permanent underclass in this country and worsen the housing situation for people like me.
Thanks for watching this segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters. If you enjoyed that and want more, you can subscribe on our website and become a premium member where you can access our exclusive content and all the other content that we put out, such as this recent video where Carl's talking about why aren't free speech arguments persuasive. If you're interested in following Carl on social media, you can follow him on Getter at Carl Benjamin. Thank you and goodbye.